Hey, good morning. It is September 5th, 2020, Saturday morning. It's about 7:30 in the morning right now. I'm putting together a video this morning. It's a little bit different than most of the videos I do. I've had a lot of people on social media, Facebook, YouTube, that have sent me messages asking how I train for our backpacking trips, how get in shape for them. And honestly, if you're trying to get in shape for a long backpacking trip, you really need to start ahead of time. It's not something you can just get up in a week and get yourself ready for if you're going to be doing a high mileage backpacking trip. What is much easier to do than doing some kind of last minute or last week training for a trip is keep yourself in the kind of shape that you'll be in, the kind of shape that you'll need to be in to put in a lot of miles. And what I try to do with my routine, not just right before a trip, but over the course of really the whole year, what I try to do is every weekend, at least one of the 2 days, either Saturday or Sunday, depending on what I've got going on that weekend, I try to put in a fairly high mileage hike. This morning, for example, I'm going to be doing somewhere between 14 and 15 miles, depending on which little detours I have to take. I do live in South Louisiana. I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana, and we did get some damage from Hurricane Laura that just passed through here a couple of weeks ago. We didn't get near as much damage as they did about an hour to our west in really what is my hometown area of Cameron and Lake Charles. But we did get some damage, some trees knocked down, power lines, that kind of stuff. So depending on what that's looking like right now, I may have to take a few detours from my normal route. That's why I'm saying probably somewhere between 14 and 15 miles today, because I honestly don't know where I might have to take detours. But anyway, having said all that, my routine, I try to do, like I said, one of these high mileage hikes on the weekend, and then some shorter cardio type stuff during the week. Ideally, at least two other shorter, maybe hour-long type cardio things during the week. More if I have time for it. I do stay pretty busy in my regular world job, so I don't get a chance every day, honestly. I don't have the time to do something every day. But if you can get in maybe 2 hours of cardio during the week, maybe early in the morning before you go to work, that's best for me, because by the end of my day at work, I'm too exhausted to do it. So I need to do it early in the morning. But if you can do that and then put together a long hike on the weekend of double-digit miles, depending on what condition you're in, try to work yourself up to at least a 10-mile hike on the weekend, and just build yourself up to that. If you can only go 5 or 6 miles, start with that, and maybe every week or every 2 weeks add another mile to it. That's what I did when I was first getting into hiking and backpacking. I didn't start out doing 18 miles in a day, but you build yourself up to that. So what I'm doing today is somewhere between 14 and 15 miles. I've also had a lot of my local friends. I do live, like I said, in Lafayette, Louisiana, which for those of y'all that are not from down here or familiar with it, the entire Lafayette area, population is about 200,000 for the metro area. Within Lafayette itself, city limits, you're looking at roughly just over 100,000 people. So it's not really a small town, but it's also not a major city. We do have some backpacking trails within about an hour's drive of Lafayette, but I'm not driving an hour to go put in miles on a trail each way. Aside from those hiking and backpacking trails, we really don't have much in Lafayette as far as trails go. There are a couple of parks that have, maybe 1 mile tracks and stuff like that. But, who wants to do 15 laps around a park? So what I've kind of done is put together a route. Right now, you can see I'm walking on a sidewalk right next to a road. About to cross at an intersection now. If I can. Yeah, I think I can go. But so I'm basically just hiking through town. I've got my pack on. It's very important, even if you're not in good enough shape to start with all your gear on your back, build yourself up to that too. But every time I hike, I have all my gear. I know you can only see the straps of my pack right now because I'm carrying my phone. I don't have my trekking poles with me, but other than my trekking poles, all the gear that I'm going to take on a backpack, with the exception of a few days worth of food, is in my pack. And I do actually have a Cliff Bar in there for a snack during this hike. But what I did to compensate for losing all that food weight that I would normally be carrying is that I am carrying a lot more water than I normally have on my back, unless I'm doing maybe segment 2 of the Colorado Trail where you have to carry all that water. So right now I have my 1 liter Smart Water bottles, which is what I use. I use a Sawyer filter. I do have my Sawyer filter in my pack, but I'm carrying 2 1 liter Smart Water bottles filled. And I also have a 3 liter bladder stuffed down in my pack that is also filled. So, that's it's a total of 5 liters of water, which if you do the math at 2.2 pounds per liter, comes out to be 11 pounds of water. So, that kind of gives me basically the same weight I would normally have on a real hike. You can see I'm in a tunnel right now. For those of you familiar with Lafayette, I am at River Ranch, crossing under Camellia Boulevard right now. You can see now I'm coming back up on the tennis court side, if you're familiar with this area. But the other question that I get from a lot of my local friends who know I do these hikes is, man, where do you go? They find out I did a 15-mile hike this morning, and they're wanting to know, what is your route? So another purpose of this video is for that, to show you my route. And for those of you familiar with Lafayette and the Lafayette area, what I normally do and what I did this morning, I parked my truck at River Ranch and, in a parking lot there, leave my truck there. I start hiking from there. I finish back at my truck. And depending on how many miles I want to put in, I've hiked from here enough times to know several different routes, depending on what mileage I want to put in. So for this morning's hike, what I did is, just to kind of give you an idea of my route for the local people, I started from my truck in River Ranch, right behind Romicelli, the restaurant. Okay, so that was my starting point. From there, I hiked down Richland Avenue, heading towards the Vermilion River, to the end of that road. Took a left at the little roundabout there to get the name of the street that turns into, but I think it's Worth, if I remember right, W-O-R-T-H. And basically what I did is walk all the way back through that neighborhood in River Ranch to get to Marshall Avenue on the back side of the neighborhood. And then for this morning's route, I took Marshall to Settlers Trace, took a left on Settlers Trace Boulevard, walked that back to Camellia, took a left on Camellia, and as you just saw a minute ago, came to the little tunnel that connects the City Club to the tennis court and swimming area of City Club. That's what I'm walking right alongside of right now. This way, I'm sorry. I don't have my trekking pole that I normally put the camera on a real hike, so you can kind of get an idea of where I'm at if you're a local. But so right now I am on Silverstone, heading towards East Bayou Parkway. So when I get to East Bayou Parkway, I'm going to follow that all the way to Khalees Saloom. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here. And when I get into that East Bayou neighborhood, might be a dog up here. I'm familiar with this area, so I know where the dogs come running out to bark at me are. And there's usually one at one of these two houses. So I don't want to... Oh, I see one. We got a boxer up here. So we'll see if the boxer starts barking. He's looking at me. Hopefully he won't bark. Yep, here he comes. Say hi to the boxer. Hi, buddy. Okay, so I've walked right now about 2 miles. And when I get onto East Bayou Parkway in a little while, I'll come back on and continue the video. But I think if you're local, you pretty much have an idea of where I am right now and what my route has been so far. So I'll continue the video when I get to East Bayou. Okay, so I am now on East Bayou Parkway. Basically what I did with the route, when I got to the end of Silverstone, took a left on Steiner. I went about 200 yards or so, got to the intersection of East Bayou Parkway, took a right. As you can see, it's a kind of a residential neighborhood. I like walking back here because it's quiet, peaceful. Most of it, there's no sidewalk, but traffic's light enough to where you can kind of walk on the road, and there's enough room on the side of the road to get off when there's a car coming. So, you know, just got to kind of be alert. And then when I get a little bit further up, there's a big median, I guess, grass and trees in the middle. And when I get to that part, I usually just kind of stay close to that median so that I can get out of the way when a car's coming. This road, East Bayou Parkway, for those that are familiar with Lafayette, but maybe not this road, it does run pretty much parallel to Khalees Saloom. Khalees Saloom, for those that are not familiar with Lafayette, is a pretty major roadway in Lafayette. And I actually used to do this route on Khalees Saloom, on the sidewalk actually, not in the road for sure. But, you know, I like to use this instead because it's, as you can see, it's kind of a residential neighborhood. It's a lot quieter. You don't have near as much traffic. So I definitely prefer hiking through this neighborhood than to being on the side of Khalees Saloom the entire way. Right now, I'm almost at the 3-mile mark of this hike. I'll be on East Bayou Parkway for a couple of miles. And then I will meet back up with Khalees Saloom Road for a little while near the intersection of Pinhook, for those of you that are familiar with the Lafayette area. So when I get back to Khalees Saloom, I'll start some more video again, which, like I said, it's about, I'm on East Bayou Parkway for about 2 miles total, if I remember correctly. And I actually just got onto East Bayou Parkway. To give you an idea of my pace, started this hike I think at 7:05 this morning, roughly. Right now it is 7:54, so I've been going 49 minutes, done about 3 miles so far. The pace that I do for these training hikes normally is somewhere right around 17 minutes and 40 seconds per mile is usually what it averages out to. Usually the first mile or two, it's a little slower pace, maybe 17:50, 17:55. I don't know why it is, but I always tend to start out first mile or two a little bit slower, and then my pace picks up for the rest of it. I guess I'm just kind of still getting warmed up. But yeah, so I'm right about 3 miles, and when I get to Khalis Saloom, I'll start some more video. Okay, so we just passed the 4 mile mark. Still on East Bayou Parkway. I haven't quite made it to Khalis Saloom just yet, but I'm almost there. Right behind St. Pius Elementary School right now, for those of you that know the area. One thing I was thinking about just now is never really given any background on myself in any of these videos. I'm fairly new to YouTube. This is actually only the 3rd video I've ever put on YouTube. First 2 were both backpacking trips with my son. First one was a hike we did over a couple of days on the Wild Azalea Trail here in Louisiana. It's about an hour and a half north of Lafayette where we live. And then the second video that I put on YouTube was just a couple of months ago, for a trip we took to Colorado on the Colorado Trail, segments 1 and 2. We did about the first a little over 30 miles of the Colorado Trail, starting from Denver, going southbound. And honestly, for those 2 videos, when I posted them, it was mainly just to share with family and friends so they could kind of see the video of our hike. But what I've noticed recently is I'm starting to get a little bit of traffic on my channel from people I don't even know, subscribers, and I guess people just kind of coming across the videos, doing searches on YouTube, and people liking it and subscribing to the channel. So what I figured I'd do during this video is kind of introduce myself a little bit to some of the people maybe that are not family and friends and don't know much about me. So I figured I'd do that now. My name is Larry Bro. I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, 48 years old. And just a little bit of background about myself. I am a high school assistant principal. Just started doing that a little over a year ago. Before that, I was a high school football coach for about 25 years. Teacher, football coach, the high school level, 3 different states, Louisiana, Texas, and Florida. And I've been at about, 8 or 10 different schools over that period of time. Before going into coaching and education, I spent a total of 8 years, counting active and reserve time, in Marine Corps infantry. Fought in Operation Desert Storm. And, I do hunt, I do fish, but I don't do them often, either one. And I'm not obsessed with them like a lot of my family and friends are that are from this part of the world. Most people down in South Louisiana, very avid hunters and or fishermen. And like I said, I do like to do both of those things, but I don't do either very often. And, I don't spend a lot of time and money investing in gear for those things. And to be quite honest with you, over my 25-year coaching career, I really didn't have the free time that you would need to have either of those hobbies anyway. During hunting season, usually pretty much correlates with football season. So on the weekends during football season, I'm spending all my time breaking down film and putting together game plans for the upcoming opponent. And in the summer, when a lot of people like to go fishing, we're going through our training and practices and game planning, all that kind of stuff. So I really didn't have much free time, to be honest with you, for the past 25 years. And now that I'm not coaching anymore and I've gone into administration, I do find myself with free time sometimes on the weekends now, and have a little bit more time off in the summer than what I used to have. And what has kind of developed over the last few years is the hobby of backpacking. For me and my son, we've taken trips together. Like I said, I posted 2 videos on YouTube before for a couple of our trips, but going back even for about the past 5 or 6 years, in the summer, Christian and I have taken several trips where it started out doing a lot of car camping type stuff in different parts of the country, and it really kind of evolved from there into doing lots of day hikes, and then eventually to the point that it is now. And for the locals, you can see I am now on Khali's Saloom. So you'll probably hear a lot of car noise for a little while now. But so anyway, it kind of evolved, you know, first to day hikes and eventually to backpacking trips. And still don't really have the time in the summer to do a long through hike, although eventually that is the goal. We did the first 2 segments of the Colorado Trail this summer, and the plan is next year to start at segment 3, go as far as time will allow us to go, and then you know, kind of pick up each summer from where we left off till eventually we get the whole Colorado Trail in. I have other trails that I want to do through hikes for. Pacific Crest Trail is probably my ultimate bucket list thing. I know a lot of people like the Appalachian Trail, but you know, honestly, that one doesn't interest me as much as the Pacific Crest Trail. I'm not really into the whole spending a lot of time in towns, doing a lot of eating and drinking type thing. I don't drink. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I have no interest in hanging out in bars and other little trail towns and drinking around the campfire every night on the Appalachian Trail with 20 other people that happen to be camping at the same shelter. The Pacific Crest Trail looks a lot more appealing to me because it's a little more remote and it's up in the mountains, and that's what I like. If you're familiar with South Louisiana, and even if you're not, you can probably tell from this video, we basically have nothing but flat land here, so it's really hard to do training to get ready for the mountains. And a little further along in this hike, I'm going to show you the best way I've found to do that in this part of the world. But anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of how we got into hiking. And we're planning more trips, hopefully around the Christmas break. We're going to go up to Arkansas and hike the Eagle Rock Loop, for those of you that are familiar with that trail. But this is kind of how I train year-round for our backpacking trips. I try to put in a lot of miles on the weekend to kind of keep my body in shape for being on trail for long periods of time. All right, just a little route update for my local friends. Probably can see in the background, if you're familiar with the area, that's the bridge over the Vermilion River on Pinhook. I just crossed over that. So I stayed on, obviously if you're local, it's probably pretty obvious to you that I stayed on Khali's Saloom till I got to the intersection with Pinhook and took a left. Just crossed the Vermilion River right by the Outback Steakhouse over that bridge, and coming up to my next turn. I used to stay on Pinhook until I got to Bendel. Locals should be familiar with that. But what I try to do, I try to walk on roads that are more through residential neighborhoods so that there's not as much traffic. Obviously, if you're on a major street, you need one that has a sidewalk, because I definitely would not be walking in the road on Khali's Saloom or Pinhook in Lafayette. But I recently found kind of an alternate route instead of taking Bendel. A little bit less traffic. I'm about to turn there now onto Marjorie Boulevard is the name of the street that I take, and it's right next to this Take 5 oil change place, right at that corner. I'm gonna take a left here, and basically what that does is I'll kind of cut off that corner of Pinhook and Bendel and walk through this residential neighborhood for, I don't know, maybe a mile, a little less than a mile. And when I get out of this neighborhood, I'll be on Bendel, right near the intersection of South College Road by Lafayette General Medical Center, for those of you that are local. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Just over the 5 mile mark, between 5 and 5.5 miles now of my route today. And once I get up around the South College area, I'll start some more video there. Okay, y'all, route update for the locals again. Made it through that little neighborhood. Got to Bendel. Continued on Bendel to South College. Took a left on South College. Right there at Lafayette General Medical Center. Crossed over South College. Right now, I'm walking through the parking lot at the Hyman Center. You can see that back this way. That's the Hyman Center. So if you're from this area, I'm sure you know where I'm at right now. And you probably figured out that what I'm doing is I'm going to cross through the parking lot and go back through the little neighborhood near Girard Park. And I'm going to walk through the park. I'm not going to make a lap around it, but I'll kind of go a half lap through Girard Park to get to where I'm going next. But anyway, I was thinking about the fact that when I was kind of giving some background about myself, I mentioned that my son and I have done several camping and backpacking and hiking trips, but I didn't really talk about where we've been. So I figured I'd do that now. We've done a lot of hiking in Colorado. We've gone a few times and camped at the Mount Elbert area right outside of Leadville. We've camped at Elbert Creek Campground several times. If you're familiar with the Mount Elbert and Mount Massive area in Colorado, you probably know exactly where I'm talking about when I say Elbert Creek Campground. But it's right next to the trailheads for both Mount Elbert and Mount Massive. So we've been there 3 or 4 times camping and just kind of did day hikes from there. We didn't really do backpacking there, but we've hiked up Mount Elbert. Have not hiked up Mount Massive. Every time we went, we basically did Mount Elbert. We've also done in Colorado. We've done, like I said earlier, first 2 segments of the Colorado Trail up in the Denver area. And you probably, if you're watching this video, you may have already seen the video from that Colorado Trail hike that we did. But if you haven't, go ahead and watch that one too. Also, if you're still watching this video, you'll probably be interested in the types of videos that I'll be putting on my channel in the future. So if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe and like down at the bottom, and click on the little bell looking thing to get notifications about when I post a new video. Also, down in the comment section, if you have any comments, questions, things you'd maybe like to see in future videos, have me talk about or show you. If you have questions about trails that we've done, feel free to leave comments down below. And I promise you, I have a very small channel, so it won't take me long to go through the comments and answer any questions you have. But other places outside of Colorado that we've hiked, within Louisiana, we've hiked the Wild Azalea Trail that I think I mentioned earlier. We've done a few different trails in the Kisatchie Forest, which is in central Louisiana, about an hour north of here, hour and a half. But outside of Louisiana and Colorado, we've also hiked trails in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, around the Grand Canyon. We've been in Utah doing some trails there. We have hiked in Nevada, near Las Vegas. Really great trails in all of those places we've gone to, and there's some that I can highly recommend. Some of those trails that we've done, honestly, are in places that you would never expect to find really cool terrain. One that comes to mind immediately is right outside of Amarillo, Texas. If you've ever driven through that area on Interstate 40 or any of the major highways around there, you probably think of the Amarillo area as just wide open plains and windmills and not much scenery. But right outside of Amarillo, there's a place called Palo Duro Canyon State Park that has some really awesome hiking trails, great views. So some of the places that you really wouldn't expect to find really cool hiking trails, there are some, and we found some of them. So if you have questions about any of the areas that we've been, or maybe you have ideas for trails that we haven't been to yet in any of those areas, please feel free to comment down below, because we're always looking for new places to go and do some of our trips. Route update for the locals again. I am just crossing the street by the roundabout at Girard Park, so I'm going to be walking on the track there for the next few minutes, and I'm going to turn the video off because I don't want to look like a moron talking to my phone for all the people that are going to be walking through the park. So I'll come back on in a couple minutes. Okay, so I'm going just over 7.5 miles now. You might notice I've taken my hat off, taken my pack off. I'm about to take a little break here, eat a little snack. One of the questions that I've gotten asked the most by both local people and people from other parts of the country where we hike, old Marine Corps buddies that are from other places, stuff like that. One of the questions I've gotten asked the most is how we train for elevation. Like I said earlier, most of the hiking and backpacking trips that we've taken have been in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, or in New Mexico, places with a lot of elevation gain, elevation loss at higher altitudes. Here in South Louisiana, we're basically at sea level, some places actually below sea level. And the ground is very flat. If you've never been down here, I mean, it's completely flat. We don't have any hills here at all. I don't mean just a little bit of hills. It is totally flat land here. So it's very hard to train for elevation gain and elevation loss when you're hiking around here. So one of the ways that I do elevation training, you may already have noticed where I'm at. If you haven't, I am standing right now on top of a parking garage. This one is 6 stories. So what I basically did, and this is kind of a route update for the locals, I guess, I did the kind of half lap around Girard Park on the running and walking track there, and then I got out of the park and continued on McKinley across St. Mary, and basically I'm on the campus of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette now. I'm on top of the Olivier parking tower, which is right across the street from the Student Union at UL. So that's where I am for the locals. But basically for people that aren't local, or even for people that are, the way I train for hikes where we're going to be going up in the mountains and stuff is I try to do a lot of laps up and down a parking garage. Just go up and down the ramps. For this particular parking garage, which is the one I tend to use, I've kind of tracked it with my GPS to get a distance. And if you start at the bottom, go all the way to the top level where I'm at now, and then go all the way back down to the entrance at ground level, it's almost exactly 1 mile. So right now, I don't have a hike coming up anytime in the very near future that's going to see a lot of elevation gain and loss. So I'm not really doing big time elevation training right now. I still like to incorporate a little bit of it in just to kind of keep my body used to those ascents and descents. But so what I'm doing today, I'm just past the 7-mile mark total for my hike. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break for a few minutes here, get my shoes off, kind of let my feet air out a little bit, eat a little snack. I brought a Cliff Bar with me, drink some water, and then, you know, get everything loaded back up, hike back down the parking garage, and continue with the rest of my hike for today. I've got about another 7 miles to go. But when we're getting close to a hike, for example, when we were getting close to our Colorado Trail backpacking trip, I might do 6 or 8 laps at a time in this parking garage, just going up and down the ramps. And that kind of gets your body, your legs and your body used to all the going up and down. Now, I'm going to kind of warn you ahead of time that if you're from South Louisiana or a place like South Louisiana that's near sea level, it's still not going to get you ready for the altitude. Okay, that's a big thing that a lot of people who haven't hiked in the Rocky Mountains or in places of very high elevation like that don't really understand the difference in altitude, the effects that has on your body. Okay, it's one thing to train for elevation gain and loss. It's an entirely different thing to be ready for that altitude. I strongly recommend that if you're a flatlander like I am, coming from near sea level, if you're going to be doing a backpacking trip in a place like Colorado, or even up in Arkansas in the Ozark Mountains, anything that's not near sea level, the oxygen is thinner the higher you get in altitude. And you know, some of the hikes we've done in Colorado, we're getting up above 10,000 and even up to 14,000 feet. It is very difficult to breathe if your body is not acclimated to that. People that are from Colorado and live there year round probably don't really experience many problems with that because their bodies have adjusted to that altitude and they can breathe that thin oxygen up there. If you're like me from South Louisiana and you're going to take a trip up there to do some hiking at high elevation, I strongly recommend you take a few days to get your body used to that altitude before putting in any big miles, because if you don't, there is a chance that you will experience altitude sickness, which I have experienced that. It is not fun, y'all. Okay, not fun at all. You also will notice when you get to high altitude places like that and do hikes, you need to expect that your time, your pace when you're hiking is going to be quite a bit slower than what you're used to at sea level. You know, my hikes here in Lafayette on flatland at sea level, even with a full pack doing, you know, 15 miles, my pace tends to be right around between the 17.5 to 18 minute per mile range. You know, a little over, I don't know, I think that comes out to be around 3 to 3.5 miles an hour. Decent pace for a 48-year-old guy, I think, with a full pack on his back. But you know, when I get up in Colorado, even if it's not a really steep trail that I'm on, that time is a lot slower. And even on the trails in Louisiana that have very mild elevation gain and loss, even on those trails, you know, my time is going to be at a slower pace than it is just walking the streets of Lafayette. But once you get up at high elevation, especially anything above 9 or 10,000 feet, it takes a very big toll on your body, on your, you know, your legs, your ankles, your knees. But even bigger, for me anyway, is on my lungs. It is very hard to breathe. Even just standing still at 14,000 feet, you feel like you're short of breath, or at least I do. So if you're planning a trip up to a high altitude area to do some hiking and you're from sea level, keep that in mind. Acclimate your body. You know, plan maybe 3 extra days at the beginning of the trip just to get used to that altitude a little better. I promise you, your body will thank you once you start hiking some big miles. I'm going to go ahead and shut down here, take a break for a few minutes, have a seat. I probably won't take my shoes off, but I'm going to at least have a seat, get a snack in me, and a little bit of water, and I'll start filming whenever I get back moving again. All right, guys, I'm still up on top of the parking tower here, sitting down, taking a break for a few minutes. Didn't get my shoes off, but my feet are feeling okay. I don't think it's really necessary for me today. Kind of got lucky because it's fairly cloudy today. Temperature is in the 90s today, or low 90s. Heat index supposed to get up to about 105 today. Very humid, but you know, being from South Louisiana, I'm kind of used to the heat and humidity. It's just something you kind of get, you know, learn to deal with. But I wanted to talk just for a couple minutes too about the importance of taking care of your body on the trail as well as during training hikes. If you're going to be doing anything more than 8 to 10 miles at a time, it's very important, I think, that you, at some point in the middle of that, just sit down and rest for a few minutes. You know, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, up to 30 minutes, you know, take a break. You know, you normally do that on the trail. You'll stop and take a snack break, a lunch break, that kind of stuff. So even when you're doing training hikes around town, try to find a place. I like to sit down in Girard Park, which is a local park we have here in Lafayette. I'll sit down on one of the benches, have a snack, just kind of sit under the trees for a little while. Or today, you know, it's a cloudy day, so you know, I'm okay sitting up here on the top of a parking garage and just let your body rest for a few minutes. Drink some water. Very important that you drink water. I'll end up drinking a whole liter of water just sitting here. Not because I'm that thirsty, but I'm going to force myself to drink about a liter of water while I'm sitting here just to make sure my body is staying hydrated. You also might want to consider, if you're doing more than 8 or 10 miles, if you don't already do this, get you something like this. It's a little pack of, this is a Gatorade energy gel. And believe me, I'm not endorsing the Gatorade brand. There are plenty of brands of this. Just a little sports gel that puts electrolytes back in your body, because as you're putting in a lot of miles, you're sweating and you're not just losing water, your body is losing electrolytes. You have a lot of salts that leave your body. So, you know, it's important to hydrate with water, obviously, but you also need to put some of those salts back into your body, the minerals, the electrolytes that your body loses. And the sports gels are good ways to do that. Like I said, I'm not endorsing Gatorade. For one of our backpacking trips, I bought a big box of assorted flavors of the Gatorade gel, and I still have quite a few of those left over. So I'm just kind of using those for my training hikes right now because I already have them. To be very honest, I don't really like the flavors very much. When I run out of these, I'm probably going to try out a different brand and see if I like them better. They're not the most appetizing things, but they are important to have. What I also usually bring with me on these little training hikes, I'll have a little snack. For today, I got a Cliff Bar. And I'll tell you what, this flavor, I don't normally see them in stores. I actually found this online. But the flavor that I'm eating is, I don't know if you can read it on there, but it's peanut butter banana with dark chocolate. It is awesome. I mean, this is the best Cliff Bar I've ever eaten. And like I said, I don't think I've ever seen them in stores, but I found them online, and I will be ordering more when I run out of these. These are great. But I'll usually bring a Cliff Bar, maybe one of those little packets of Spam, the little singles if you like Spam, just something to put some calories back in your body, along with those electrolytes, because you know I'm doing about 14-15 miles today, and it's over the course of about 4 hours. You know, I got up this morning, I had a cup of coffee like I always do, and I think I just drank like one of those little Slim Fast shakes or something. I didn't really have a real breakfast, and you know, I'm gonna burn pretty close to 2,000 calories on the hike that I'm doing today. You need to be putting something in your body in the middle of that, because if you don't, you're just going to be dead before you finish. I mean, when you get up high mileage, it really starts to take a toll on your body if you're not taking care of yourself. So, you know, it's obviously important to do that during a backpacking trip while you're on the trail. Take care of your feet, make sure you're getting calories in, make sure you're staying hydrated. But it's equally important to do that during your training hikes, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself, and eventually you're going to quit doing those training hikes because you're just going to be so uncomfortable, so miserable. You won't want to do training hikes anymore. Training hikes should not be the kind of thing that becomes a chore. I enjoy doing this. I mean, I look forward. By the time I get to Wednesday or Thursday in a week, I'm already thinking about Saturday or Sunday morning, just being able to put my pack on, tune out the rest of the world, even though I'm still in a city, and just walk around for, 10 miles, 15 miles, whatever I'm doing that week. It's my little getaway time. I tend to like to isolate. When I'm at work, I'm constantly around people, having to do things for a lot of people, and I enjoy that. But, when I'm not at work, there's times where I just need to be by myself, get away from everybody, and just, be in my own little world. And that's what hiking and backpacking does for me. I love being, if I could pick one place to be in the world, it would be out in the mountains in Colorado with no one around, just me and the bears and the mooses and whatever else I see out there. That's my idea of paradise. I know a lot of people like the beach, and I do like going to the beach, but I'll take I'll take a tent out in the middle of the mountains with nobody else around every day before I'll take a trip to the beach. That's my getaway. That's my zone. And but it's important to take care of your body. So just kind of some little tips for you. And I'm going to rest here for just a couple more minutes, force myself to drink a little bit more water, and then I'm going to refill my water bottles with the bladder that I have in my pack so that those will both be full for the rest of my hike. Like I said, I think I've got about another 7 miles to go. And once I get moving again, I'll break back in with a route update for some of the local people so you'll kind of get an idea of where I'm at. All right, just past the 8-mile mark now. Out of the parking garage. Spent a little bit more time in there than I had planned because as I was finishing up my break and got my water filled up, I was about to put my pack back on, and the old guy was a custodian for the parking garage. Ended up, he was out there emptying trash cans, sweeping up, stuff like that, and we ended up getting in a conversation for about 30 minutes. So just getting back moving again after that break. And out of the parking garage, route update for the locals. I am on St. Mary, heading towards University Avenue. When I get to University, I'm going to take a left and go back up to Johnston Street. And then I'll take a left on Johnson, and I'll be on that for a long stretch. Kind of lucky today because it's a cloudy morning, so it's a little cooler than what I'm used to. On these hikes, it's very nice because usually by this point of the hike, I am drenched in sweat. I am sweating, but not near as bad as I usually am. And I'm also normally feeling like I'm about to pass out from the heat, and it's very comfortable right now compared to what it usually is. If you're not from South Louisiana, you'd probably still be feeling miserable because of how humid we have it here, but it's really not that bad compared to what we usually have. But yeah, so I'm a little over 8 miles, got about 6 to go. So update again later. So I just realized that the last route update that I gave for the locals might have sounded pretty confusing, and it's because I gave you some wrong information. What I said is that when I came out of the parking garage, I continued on St. Mary. That was wrong. I was on McKinley. I'm sorry. So what I did is I came out of the parking garage, continued east on McKinley to University, took the left on University, went up to Johnston, the intersection of Johnston and University right there on campus, and I took a left on Johnston, going down Johnston Street now, heading west. I'm kind of turned the other direction so you can see I'm right there where McDonald's and what used to be Bisbano's Pizza, now Pizzaville, USA. That's where I am now, heading west. I'll stay on Johnston for a while now, for the next few miles. I'm almost to the 9-mile mark, and I think, if I remember right, I'll be on Johnston for at least 2 more miles, maybe closer to 3. Basically what I'm doing is when I get near Foreman Road, I kind of cut through a neighborhood, through the Brentwood neighborhood. So if you're local, you probably know what I'm talking about. But until then, I'll be on Johnston. So this is usually kind of the long stretch of this route that I take. And probably the most dangerous because you're right alongside Johnston Street, which for those not familiar with Lafayette is probably one of the two busiest streets in Lafayette usually. It is Saturday morning, so it's not as congested as it would be on a weekday at this time. But still, there are a couple of intersections that I have to cross that if the cars are not always paying attention to the lights for pedestrian crossings, sometimes can get a little bit scary. And for the locals, the intersections I'm talking about is where Johnston crosses College. That's probably the worst one. And then the second worst one is where Johnston crosses Doucette by the Grand Theater. So I still have both of those crossings ahead of me. Also, it's kind of a high traffic area when you get close to where the farmers market is on Saturday mornings by the old horse farm. So if you are local and you plan on walking this route, be extra careful when you get to those places, because a lot of the drivers on Johnston Street, and I'm sure you already know this, are not really paying attention to anything other than themselves and their radios, and they're trying to weave in and out of traffic to be the first one to get to the next red light, I guess, because, you know, no matter how fast you go on Johnston Street, it's going to take you forever to get down the road. But just be extra careful if you do decide to take this route, because this stretch is probably the most likely that you might get hit by a car, because they don't really pay attention. The other thing about this stretch, and it's not as big a factor today because it's fairly cloudy. Sun is starting to come out right now. You want to make very sure that not only are you careful watching for traffic, but also make sure you are staying hydrated. Even if you don't feel thirsty, drink water as much as you can. Force yourself to drink water. I kind of have a system that I use where I drink based on mileage every so often. Whether I'm feeling like I'm thirsty or not, I'm gonna drink some water. But do whatever you got to do that'll, you know, maybe set alarms on your phones or something to go off every 30 minutes, however you want to do it. But do something to remind you to drink water, even if you don't feel thirsty, because if you don't, it is very easy to get dehydrated, especially on this stretch of the route if you're local and doing this route, because there is nowhere to get in the shade, at least for a few miles. But I'm going to continue on Johnston Street for a while, and once I'm getting off of Johnston, I'll get back on and give another route update. Okay, little update, just about to hit the 11-mile mark now. I'm off of Johnston Street. Quick route update for the locals. When I got to Foreman, I cut through the parking lot at, forget the name of it, but the little place where you can rent tuxedos and prom dresses and stuff like that. Cut through that parking lot, and now on Bel Ann Drive, which if you're not familiar with the name, it's a little side street that runs parallel to Johnston Street and goes directly behind Asbury Methodist Church and La Fonda Mexican restaurant. That should give you an idea of where I am now. You can see finally back in some trees, a little bit of shade here and there, and it's good timing for it because clouds have burned off and it is ridiculously hot now. I don't know if you can tell from the video how much sunnier it is now, but it's feeling that sun in full effect. In other words, just a typical September morning in South Louisiana. Very humid today. Nothing I'm not used to, because this is kind of typical for this time of year here. But it does take a lot out of you. So again, be sure if you're doing these kinds of things, make sure you stay hydrated. And you know, if you're doing anything for any length of time that's going to be more than an hour or two, like I am, aside from water, you should also be replacing electrolytes as well. because even though you're putting water back in your body, if you're not putting those salts, minerals, electrolytes back in, you'll still get the same, dehydration type effects from the heat, even though you are drinking water. So replenish those also. But basically what I'm doing with the route now for the locals is when I get to, I can see it up ahead, but I can't make out the name of the road yet, so I'll tell you in a second. But I'm almost to La Fonda restaurant. I'll come to a T in the road there, right in front of the parking lot for Pete's. I know everybody in Lafayette knows where Pete's is on Johnston, but when I get there, I'm gonna hang a left and continue through that neighborhood, making a few turns here and there through the neighborhood to basically get me back to Camellia Boulevard. And then I will take the left on Camellia to start heading back to River Ranch. So I have roughly, another 3 miles or so to go to get to the end of my hike for today. Again, it's getting very hot now, and grateful for the cloudy start, but I'm really wishing right now that I wouldn't have spent as much time talking to that custodian in the parking garage as I did, because it's made the last couple of miles pretty brutal with this heat. And I'm going to be mostly exposed from now till the end, with the exception of a few shady areas here and there where I'll be walking through some tree cover, but for the most part, it's wide open sunlight and heat. Okay, so I'm taking a left now on Maryland Drive for the locals, right next to Pete's and La Fonda, that little street that goes between those two places. And I'm basically only walking about half a block on this road. I'm going to make the right on Claymore Drive, which I've almost gotten to. And I'll walk to the end of Claymore before taking a left, which is also probably only about another half a block. So I'm getting on Claymore now. I'll be able to tell you the name of the street that I'm taking a left on in just a second when I can see that street sign. But I'm right now almost directly behind Pete's Bar and Grill and Emanelli Restaurant, the little street that runs behind those through that residential neighborhood. And I know if you're from somewhere else, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to keep my local friends updated because I know a lot of them had questions about the route that I take and were interested in trying to start do these hikes themselves. So I want to give them the best idea I can of the route that I take so that they can use that as a guide. So I'm actually taking that left now, and what I'm realizing is that this is still Claymore Drive, so it's kind of it makes the curve and doesn't even change the name of the street. So I'm still on Claymore Drive now, and I'll continue on this for a little while and let you know what street I'm taking the next right on. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to say, I know some of you maybe that are watching this are very familiar with YouTube and how it works, but I also know that some people may not be. I am trying to grow my channel, and for those of you that may not be familiar with how that happens, please click the like button down below, subscribe to my channel, click on the little bell for notifications, and leave comments. That helps my channel be more visible. Okay, just got off of Claymore, took a right on Yolande Drive. I'll be on this for the next few blocks. Just getting into some shade, which is very welcome. First shade I've had since the last time I was in the video, and it is getting ridiculously hot right now. I'll continue on this for the next few blocks till I get to Rena Drive, and then I'll take a left there. I know my talking is getting having a lot of pauses in it, but it's because it's heat's making it harder to breathe. The heat's getting to be pretty close to unbearable. So I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to pause it here, and after I get down Rena Drive a little ways, I'll video some more. All right, I'm at a 12.6 mile mark now. I went down Rena and I took a right on Academy. And to be honest with you, the heat got to be a little bit too much for me. It's pretty unbearable. Getting dizzy and lightheaded, very weak. So I actually found a shady spot under an oak tree in front of somebody's front yard and just kind of had a seat on the sidewalk there for a few minutes. Drank another liter of water there, poured a little bit of it over my head to cool me down a little, and kind of recharged me for the big finish at the end. So got my pack back on. I'm down to my last half liter or so of water, but it should get me through. I'm almost done. I went down Academy till I got to Camellia. I have crossed over Camellia to the other side because that's the side of River Ranch where my truck is parked. So now I'm heading south on Camellia. In just a couple minutes, I'll be crossing the bridge over the Vermilion River on Camellia. And then, making that last little push towards where my truck is parked in River Ranch. Never underestimate the heat, y'all. Make sure that you have plenty of water with you, electrolytes, whatever you can bring with you. I was planning on starting my hike today about an hour earlier, and I was lazy getting out of bed this morning, and I'm really wishing I'd have started earlier. Also wish I wouldn't have spent so much time talking to that custodian at the parking garage earlier. Very nice guy, had a good conversation with him, but even still, it put me walking through more heat than I should have had to. It is getting a little bit cloudy again. Not really cloudy, but the sun is behind some clouds now, so that's making things a little more comfortable, and it definitely helped to sit under that tree and take a break for a few minutes and kind of cool off with some more water. So I'm at about not quite 13 miles right now. I'm at about 12.8, I believe. Got around a mile to go, probably actually a little bit less than a mile. So my total hike for today should end up being just under 14 miles. But definitely a rough one in this heat. So I'm gonna make this last little stretch, conserve my wind by not talking too much more, and make sure this water lasts to the end. So I just figured I'd shoot a little video here from the top of the bridge. I'm on the Camellia Street Bridge over the Vermilion River, and I'm sure like most people in Lafayette, you drive over this bridge a lot, but you don't really get to see the view as you're driving over. But it's a really pretty view of the Vermilion River, River Ranch neighborhood. So if you haven't done so, you ever get the chance to walk around this area, there's really some very pretty views that you don't normally see driving through here. All right, so as you probably can tell, I am now sitting back in my truck, finished with the hike. Ended up being right at 13 and a half miles today. I'm in my truck now, my air conditioner cranked up, cooling down. I have about a half a liter of water left. I'm gonna sit here, finish drinking that, and cool down a little bit before I leave. I'll probably sit here for another 5 or 10 minutes before I leave. And it's a good idea to do that when you finish with a long hike. You want to try to resist the urge to get right back in your truck and head home. And I speak from experience. What tends to happen if you do that is, at least what tends to happen to me if I do that, my legs in a few minutes after walking for 4 hours like I just did and almost 14 miles. Now that I've returned to the comforts of a truck, sitting in my seat, air conditioner blowing on me, I'll start to get cramps in my legs. I also, as my body adjusts to being back in the cool environment of my truck with the air conditioner blowing on me, I might start to feel lightheaded, dizzy, might get blurry eyesight. Basically, a lot of things that make driving through traffic kind of dangerous. So what I usually do is when I get back to my truck, especially on a hot day where I'm really exhausted like today, I'm going to sit here for 5 or 10 minutes in the air conditioning. I'll finish drinking whatever water I have left in my bottle to get my body used to the environment, so that there's less likelihood that I'll start feeling dizzy or cramping up while I'm driving again. Okay, and it's kind of a safety issue. So I definitely recommend doing that. Let your body adjust to being seated with a seatbelt on, cool air blowing on you before you try to drive. My house is about a 15-minute drive from here. So it's, and I go through some fairly high traffic parts of town between here and my house. So I don't want to end up getting in a wreck on my way home from a long hike like this. I get a lot of questions from people locally, that know that I do a lot of these backpacking trips up in the mountains and stuff. And, the questions they ask is, you live in Lafayette, where can you go to hike to get ready? And it's honestly, it really doesn't matter where you live. I mean, and that's kind of that was the purpose of this video today, is to show you that even if you live in a city that has no hiking trails around, you can kind of scout out some routes around town where you can safely put in a lot of miles to train for long distance hikes. You also can use parking garages. If you have access to football stadiums, going up and down the bleachers there are ways you can train for elevation gain and loss, even if you live at a flat sea level place like I do. Now, training for the altitude is a different story, because there's just no way. And in South Louisiana, when you live at sea level or below sea level, you cannot train for what hiking conditions are like at and above 10,000 feet of elevation like the Rocky Mountains are in Colorado. But even for that, there are some things you can do. And it's, I'll give you one example. One example is what we've all had to deal with over the last 6 months or so across the country. Most places right now, or within the past few months at least, when you go to public places, restaurants, grocery stores, that kind of stuff, you're required to wear a mask. I'm an assistant principal at a high school, like I mentioned earlier, and our schools have been closed for the past 6 months, but administrators have been having to work on a daily basis at school to kind of get things ready for the upcoming school year, and we've been required to wear masks at work. When school starts, which is now just 3 days away for us, today is Saturday, this is Labor Day weekend, our school will start Tuesday. Everybody, students, faculty, everybody at school is going to be required to wear a mask. Those masks are actually good training tools to get you prepared for altitude. Because one of the effects of hiking at altitude is you don't have as much oxygen. The air is thinner. There's not as much oxygen in the air. So one thing you can do to get ready for those types of conditions is hiking at sea level while wearing a mask. I know it's not comfortable, but if you haven't done it before, what you'll come to realize is that hiking in the Rocky Mountains is not comfortable either if you're not used to the air at that altitude. But if you wear a mask while you hike, you're not going to be breathing in as much oxygen as you normally do. That kind of does a little bit to simulate what it feels like hiking at high altitude conditions. So it's just an idea you know you may or may not want to use. Personally, honestly, I don't do that. I don't hike with a mask. In South Louisiana, the heat and humidity are so bad without a mask that I don't want to add that little bit of discomfort to those hikes. But you know, it is an idea that you may consider if you're training to go hike in the Rockies or other places at high elevation. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you're still watching it, you know, you're definitely interested in the kind of videos that I make and the things that I'm interested in. So if you are still watching, you either have a lot of interest in this or you really have nothing to do right now. In either case, please help me out, like and subscribe to my channel. Click on the little bell down below there or somewhere, depending on what kind of device you're watching it on. Click on the little bell. What that basically does is notify you when I make a new video, so that you'll know I have new content on this channel. And also, please leave comments down below. You know, let me know if you like the video. Let me know if you don't like the video. Tell me how ugly I am, whatever. If you have questions about anything I have mentioned or not mentioned in this video, please feel free to ask. If you have questions about particular trails, just anything backpacking related or anything at all, please feel free to leave comments below. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.